Number 11, Alabama. There are some folks that feel a little bit better about Alabama than I do, but I just don't know what you have. I don't know what your team is going to look like, and I don't know how they're responding to Caleb DeBoer and to the changes that have been going on at Alabama basically since Nick Saban retired. You went from having Caleb DeBoer being followed by Ryan Grubb, right? And then going to get Kane Womack, who's the head coach of South Alabama, Mo Linguist, who was a head coach at Buffalo, to watching Ryan Grubb leave for the Seattle Seahawks. Nobody is mad about that. But then you're going to elevate Nick Sheridan, who can do the job as an offensive coordinator, but I need to see him do the job. And then, of course, you had the Exodus. That is the best way to describe what happened to Alabama. It was decimated in the portal with Nick Saban retiring because, quite literally, people decided to play for the best college football coach who has ever coached. And when he was no longer coaching them, they didn't have a reason to stay at Alabama. Now, you got Jalen Milroe coming back, and that's not nothing, okay? He has won SEC championship against a Georgia team that we thought was dominant, right? I'm thinking about other programs that are adding really great quarterbacks that just don't have Jalen Milroe's resume as the starter at Alabama. Remember, this guy that got benched after throwing 2 picks in a double-digit loss to Texas, fought back, leads them to the SEC championship and a win against a Georgia team that until they lost to Alabama, we all thought was just going to shoe in to the national title game, if not the college football playoff. Now, added some Washington players that I like: Austin Mack, Parker Brailsford, Jeremy Bernard, and then, of course, Texas A&M, DT, LT Overton, and USC, DB, Damani Jackson. But I still got to see it, right? I want to see what you look like at the spring game, and I want to see how deep you are, because that was the thing about Alabama. Even last year, when they weren't as talented as they had been in years past, they had depth, right? They could go down the depth chart and really hit a 4-star, 5-star everywhere they look. Just take a look at all of the Alabama players that have dispersed since then. I think they can do well. I think they could be good, but are they going to be the kind of team that plays in the SEC championship game ahead of, say, Ole Miss, LSU? I don't know. Texas. We'll see. Number 12, I got Oklahoma State. I also understand that there are a lot of people that just don't feel great about Oklahoma State, and far be it from me to try to tell them that they are wrong. Well, let's just say that I, having a very close look at Stillwater down the road, feel pretty good about them in this new Big 12. First, you're getting your Doak Walker Award winner back in one Ollie Gordon, who had 1,732 yards rushing, right? He could have chosen to go into the transfer portal, come out probably making a lot of money in NIL, decided to stay at Oklahoma State. That's not a small thing. Also adding here, Ollie Gordon is Doak Walker Award winner. Barry Sanders didn't win the Doak Walker Award. Now, caveat there was no Doak Walker Award when Barry Sanders won the Heisman in 1988, but you understand what I mean. Outside of Chuba Hubbard, I don't know of a guy that has done more to put his program in positions to win than Ollie Gordon. Now, they want to get back to the Big 12 title game. This time, don't get housed, and there's no Texas to house them. You're also going to have Alan Bowman back, so your backfield is complete. He's going into a 7th year, competing for the Wooderson Award. They get older. He stays the same age. He's just going to have to find some other targets at wide receiver. I think that's going to be fine for them. But the reason that I feel really good about that Big 12 offense is because they got all 5 starters coming back on that offensive line. That's not a small thing given what Ollie Gordon could do. Now, he turned out to be a little bit of a hothead on the sidelines, but when that dude was running the ball, he's running it well. And it took Mike Gundy 3 games to figure out should be putting it into the stomach of Ollie Gordon more often than not. And they didn't do a bunch of that against Texas. And I think that's one of the reasons why they ended up losing that game. Now, there's also no reason to believe Mike Gundy's Oklahoma State can't make the college football playoff for the first time in their history, as again, we're going to at least 12 teams. Might see 14, might see 16, but at least 12 teams. And I think the winner of the Big 12 conference going to get one of those automatic bids. And then you might see 2 or even 3 teams get at-large bids depending on what they do. I just like what Oklahoma State is doing in a really open Big 12. It's got no OU, no Texas, and feels like they can take control of this thing as other programs like, say, Utah, Kansas are on the rise. Utah has the capability. We'll talk about that, but I really like Oklahoma State right now. Tennessee, I got at 13. 14, I got Clemson. 15, my Oklahoma Sooners. Look, offensively, I was yawning. You added 4 offensive linemen. That's great. You added Deion Burks from Purdue, 47 catches. That's cool. I need Jackson Arnold to grow up in a hurry on this one. I saw some plays that he made against Arizona that were like, wow, okay, there's the 5-star. And then I saw plays that he made where I'm going, son, what were you looking at? Tell me which jersey you were trying to throw this football to, because it didn't look like the ones in red. You know what I'm saying? That was that Alamo Bowl against an Arizona team that turned out to be really good. But I think what I'm going to be paying most attention to, especially during the spring, is how Zach Alley and Brent Venables go about putting together the defense. That was the strength for me of Oklahoma last year. They were able to put a lid on it, and they could get playmakers. Billy Bowman, I thought, was a shoo-in to be a Thorpe Award finalist, and I'm still quite upset about that. Even as I sit on the selection committee and am a voter, I can't make heads or tails of that one. I understand that he's my guy because he's my guy, but if you looked at his production, you would also be thinking, oh, yeah, that's right. Danny Stutzman's back, right? Ethan Downs. All those guys can play. It's about, can they be the kind of defense that I grew to know Brent Venables coordinating at Oklahoma and Clemson, which is the one that puts the clamps down on everybody they play. It is a hard day's work. You got to put in a shift against that defense. Now, we'll see what that looks like going forward. But again, they have a chance to make an entrance in the toughest conference south of the Mason-Dixon line. Let's see if they can get it done, but staying healthy through the spring is a big part of that. Number 16, I got Kansas State. Chris Kleiman. Watch Colin Klein take another job at A&M being offensive coordinator. He responded by tapping former Texas Tech head coach Matt Wells, also an Okie, dude I love, and Connor Riley to be his coordinators. Budding star in Avery Johnson, who's, I think, really good. There's no Cooper Beebe, though. And that offensive line room runs Kansas State. Everybody would tell you the same. And Cooper Beebe was that guy in that room. There's no Ben Sinnott, who was a do-everything tight end for them. But I think Avery Johnson's going to like Dante Cephas. Dante Cephas was great at Kent State, transferred to Penn State, thought it was going to be great. Didn't do much. If he can get back to that Kent State form at Kansas State, the student going to states, I think they got a shot to contend for the Big 12 title. Number 17, I got Notre Dame, which is right where I had them in the way too early top 25. And I'm not as high on them as others. I've even seen them ranked as high as number 5. I can get behind it, especially in the pre-spring, right, given the movement. And what you're emphasizing here is continuity, right? Marcus Freeman coming off of a 10-win season, a quiet 10-win season. But that's because it started out gangbusters. You lose to Ohio State, and then nobody expected Louisville to be good, and that's turned out to be the case. Now you're adding some really good players, and one in particular in former Blue Devil quarterback Riley Leonard, who's going to come off an injury. I think he's going to be really good for them, not unlike what Sam Hartman was last year. He's going to get some help from Clemson wide receiver Bo Collins and Florida International wide receiver Chris Mitchell. But I think the biggest addition to Notre Dame this season is that offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock, who put together a game plan for Jaden Daniels that led him to the Heisman Trophy after I hadn't seen that sort of play from Jaden Daniels at all in his career. If he could do that with Riley Leonard, sky's the limit for Notre Dame and what they're able to accomplish. I think the thing to identify in the spring and even in the preseason are who are your bookends, right? Who are your offensive tackles with Blake Fisher and Joe Alt headed to the NFL? Joe Alt, man, that dude and Amarius Mims, they just impressed the hell out of me at the NFL Combine. Sheer size. Number 18, I got Arizona. I mentioned Brent Brennan is taking over the Wildcats. He's already done his job in recruiting as far as I'm concerned, getting quarterback Noah Fafita to stay put in Tucson as they try to make this thing happen in the Big 12, really build on a magic season for them last year and see what they can't do in this wide open Big 12. Fafita is a dude that really broke out for me against SC, but the last 5 games of the Wildcats season, he had 3 300-yard or better passing performances, including 527 against Arizona State and, of course, 354 against Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl. Number 19, Kansas. I like Kansas. I really like Kansas. I really like what Lance Leipold has done and what that program has come to mean in Lawrence, because they get to talk about the football team. I like the basketball team, but they get to talk about the football team being good, right? I'm saying 9 wins, beating UNLV in a bowl game. You get Jalen Daniels back. Can you keep him healthy for a full year, right? Devin Neal, I think, is the guy that we should be focusing on. Outside of Ollie Gordon, that was the best tailback in the Big 12 for me last year. They got a really great shot to win the Big 12 championship this season if things go their way. They're adding some outstanding players on the offensive line, including Shane Bumgardner, who's not a guy that I think you would know if you aren't just in the weeds, but he won the Remington Award in Division II at Tiffin last year, and he's going to get some help on the inside with Daryl Simmons joining up. Had 38 starts at Iowa State. If he starts all 12 at Kansas, we're talking about a guy that's going to have 50 career starts in college. That's not too shabby. Lance Leipold's got those guys going in the right direction. The only thing that gives me pause for Kansas is they don't play a single game in Lawrence this year because they're getting that whole place renovated. But if anybody could pull it out, it would be one Lance Leipold, who responded to losing Andy Kotelnicki by hiring Jeff Grimes, who's done great work at both Baylor. BYU is pretty damn good offensive line coach at LSU. Number 20, I got Iowa. Hawkeye defense will once again feature, which is what you would expect for Iowa. But my goodness, I hope Tim Lester can push that offense just a little bit forward into the 21st century with the return of guys like Cade McNamara and the addition of Caden Proctor, who's coming back home after first going to Alabama, where he was a starter as a true freshman. Maybe that's the reason, because Kirk Ferentz really loves to redshirt his freshmen and let them grow up a little bit. But if you want to play, you want to play. I understand that. At one point or another, I'm just going to look at Tim Lester and go, hey, dog, if you're not getting it done, maybe Caitlin Clark can. Because if she running the offense, at least I know you're going to score. That's where I'm at on that. Like, Kurt, I'm being serious about that. Give her the play calling privileges, because this offense that y'all running, it can't stand, man. This will not stand, man. Number 21, I got Utah. The Utes entered the Big 12, I think, as one of the favorites to win the league. But I think that's Kyle Whittingham's doing. Because since Kyle Whittingham became head coach of Utah, they have been Iowa in the Pac-12, or West, I should say, of the Mississippi. Well, Iowa's west of Mississippi, but you understand what I mean, on the West Coast, right? But I think the reason that they could make the college football playoff for the first time in school history is going to be Cam Rising, provided he plays. Rising, along with Alan Bowman, is competing for the Wooderson Award. They get older. I stay the same age, right? I get older. They stay the same age. And I think taking a medical red shirt was really helpful for what they could do as far as their depth, producing at a rate that they hadn't had to produce when that guy could make plays for them. But I need to see him play, right? As soon as I see him in pads getting hit, then I'm going to talk about Cam Rising being the guy that can get them to the college football playoff. But for now, we're going to act as if, right? So Cam Rising, Brent Keithy also coming out of an injury, and Micah Bernard, I think, are going to be the guys that you key in on, especially with Jaquindon Jackson choosing to transfer to Arkansas, where I expect him to be a pretty damn good tailback too. Number 22, I got Kentucky. Mark Stoops went into the portal, came out with some dudes. Former Georgia quarterback at 5-star Brock Vandagriff, and I think the best defender at Georgia in Jamon Dumas Johnson, choosing to transfer to Kentucky is a tremendous coup and win, right? Add to this that still developing the offense that you want to go with, but I think if Brock Vandagriff gets into a rhythm, Kentucky can shock some people. And the addition of Jamori Macklin, caught 57 passes for over 1,000 yards in North Texas, ain't going to hurt nobody's feelings in Lexington either, right? Number 23, I got West Virginia. Another team that I'm high on, if others are not, mostly because Neil Brown had his back against the wall last year, talking about how do you coach around with all this noise about what might happen to his job. And all he did was turn out a 9-win season and a 30-10 win against Drake May in North Carolina, or I should say Drake May's North Carolina, in the Duke Mayo Bowl. I think that they are the reason why the Big 12 is so stacked through the middle. Like, I go all the way down. I want to say to the 13 before I feel bad about somebody's chances to win the Big 12 championship. West Virginia is a big reason as to why. What Missouri and Kentucky were for the SEC, West Virginia was for the Big 12 last year and could be this year. Number 24, I got Louisville. Jeff Braun making moves, went into the portal, came out with Tyler Shuck, former Alabama wideout Ja'Cory Brooks. And then a big one, MAC Offensive Player of the Year coming out of Toledo, Penny Boone, who had 1,400 rush yards, right, for the Rockets last year. Good football player on a good team. And then beating out Ole Miss for Tennessee edge Tyler Barron on your defense. That's a guy who had 10.5 tackles for loss, 6 sacks. I think they're going to be pretty damn good. And then number 25. That's the one that I think is going to return the most heads. But, you know, it's Lincoln Riley and it's USC. So Miller Moss does enough for me in the Holiday Bowl to be like, all right, cool. He can play, and then he ran off the competition. I realized that Malachi Nelson transferred before the Holiday Bowl, but he still transferred, right? And there was talk about whether or not Will Howard would even end up at USC. Obviously, he ended up at Ohio State. But going for 372 yards with 6 TDs and 1 pick against a decent to, I should say, top 15 Louisville team, that's enough. On top of that, Lincoln Riley's your play caller and your quarterbacks coach. I don't know that Lincoln Riley makes a habit of missing on quarterbacks. Matter of fact, I know for a fact he does not make a habit of missing on quarterbacks. Caleb Williams, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. We can keep going down the list if we need to, but you get my point here. If that's the guy that ends up starting week 1 for them, I feel good about it. Might not be. We'll see. But the reason I have them at 25 is not Miller Moss. It's not really even Lincoln Riley. It's Lincoln Riley's defensive staff. He has decided to act like his defense has been the weakness of his program at Oklahoma and USC for the first time. Let go of Alex Grinch and then went and got some dudes. It's not just Danton Lynn, who's coming over from UCLA, where they allow just 18 points plus per game. It's the addition of former Los Angeles Rams defensive line coach Eric Henderson, who, oh, by the way, helped coach Aaron Donald into being one of the most disruptive forces in the National Football League. And then the coup for me is North Dakota State coach Matt Inch choosing to coach linebackers at SC. That is a dude who produces All-Americans, won national championships at the FCS level. All 3 of those guys are coaching on a defense that has been sorry. They've been sorry since Lincoln Riley arrived there. If they can get back to playing good football on the defensive side, a defense that the offense can be proud of, USC can make some noise. They got LSU on the schedule. They got a schedule. They got Michigan on the schedule. They're going to have to go at this. And because they are that team that insists on playing FBS opponents in every game they play, cool. Here's the full dose. But I like them at 25.
If you like what you've seen, consider subscribing to the #1 college football show on YouTube, the Fox Sports app, or wherever you get your podcast.